Welcome back to what I hope is the beginning of an exciting time. We got the Brothers Mahoney. I'm Michael.
And I am James.
And today we are actually discussing some Cohen Day Doctor Who. We mentioned before when we first started this, perhaps in our introduction explanatory video, that while we are trying to, in a way, catch up to Modern Who, that's why we've been discussing season 1 and naturally discussing a bunch of random Classic Who and, of course, Big Finish audio. We always wanted to discuss the new episodes and new stories as they came out too. We still have a couple of days before the Star Beast comes out, but we did have at least to me, as a surprise release on November the 17th, which was the 2023 Children in Needs parcel, which I think is officially titled Destination Skaro. It's just a 4.5 minute mini-sode with David Tennant as a 14th Doctor. He's not really the focus, but he pops in. I'm not sure if people were expecting it. I'm not always up to date on what's going on in the fandom. It's very possible that a lot of people knew it was coming. But it's not the first time there's been a Children in Needs parcel. There have been a handful of those before.
Yeah, the two, to me, most important Children in Needs parcels related to Doctor Who were, of course, the very first time we see David Tennant as the Doctor, ironically enough, in what was called Born Again, which was the Children in Needs parcel in, I believe it was 2005. It could have been 2006. But in either one of those, first time we see David Tennant as the 10th Doctor. And, of course, the Children in Needs parcel following season 4, Time Crash, which, of course, brought back Peter Davison as the 5th Doctor. I believe he was the first Doctor to come back in the Revival series. And, of course, they've had a lot of Doctors come back. To give it some of the only credit I ever will, the Power of the Doctor, where we got McCoy back, we got McGann back, we got Davison back again. And I forget, yeah, we even got Colin Baker back. Yeah, he appeared there as well. So, no Baker, though. No Tom Baker. But I guess he is way too old to actually have pulled that off at this point. But either way, although we had them as the curator. But either way, so those are the two previous Children in Needs parcels that I'm familiar with. Apparently there were some Matt Smith ones. I don't really know them. But there were a lot of smaller WAB-released Matt Smith and Capaldi. I think there's some Capaldi ones.
And before the Screaming Popcorn.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly if that was if that was just a prelude to something in theaters. I really don't remember the specifics, but...
And if you don't get the reference, that's okay, because it's not going to matter for some time.
Oh, awful. So, the plot for this, insofar as a 4-minute thing can have much of a plot, we see the return of Julian Bleach as Davros, who we previously saw as Davros in The Stolen Oath, Journey's End at the end of Series 4, and in The Magician's Apprentice, blah blah, that two-parter, which I believe opens Series 10, I guess? Yeah, Series 10.
I have to be honest, I had no idea it was the same actor.
But... Yeah, no, it is the same actor, and the reason I didn't realize it's the same actor is he's not in the normal Davros makeup. Any fan of the classic series, so even the new series, you know that Davros has a very certain, specific look to him. He kind of has 3 eyes.
You can't really confuse Davros with too many other characters.
No, he's quite distinctive. Although this version of Davros is not as distinctive, but it's the same actor. In this, he's not mutated and he's not in a wheelchair. He's just walking around and looks basically like a normal human, as far as I can tell.
I would imagine it's supposed to be pre-accident Davros. Though
it has to be.
Well, who's to say what it has to be? But I also have to admit that I don't have a good hang on the chronology of Davros.
Well, I don't know if many people do. I think he's died 6, 7, 8 times. I'm including the novels. I'm including the show. I know Skaro blew up like 5 times. I guess it's a bad day for Skaro. Oh, apparently this is fun. I just learned this. One of the Doctor Who novels retconned the Skaro explosion at the end of Remembrance of the Daleks. The way that wasn't actually Skaro, that was another planet. But the Daleks, to keep their timeline and congruency or whatever, moved the planet there and they pretended it was Skaro. One of the, I think, 8th Doctor advancers had that reveal in it.
That is interesting. I had not heard that.
But yeah, so basically, I don't think anybody really understands Davros' timeline, and I would say that it's impossible to. It's possibly, and this, I mean, there's already debates, is this canon, is it not canon? I saw those within an hour of it being posted. We were recording it on the 18th. It was posted yesterday. And I was on Reddit at the time, and I saw debates about, oh, is this canon or is it not canon? And I mean, that's going to happen, especially with comedy things. And this wasn't quite comedy, but it was, I have to admit, the feeling of it, I didn't work as well with me, just because the feeling seemed too comedic.
Yeah, it has a very light-hearted tone. You pretty much have Davros talking to a new hire, sort of showcasing what we know to be later on the Daleks. Only difference being that, as opposed to one of those plunger things, it has this like extractable claw. Looks pretty menacing. And the new hire is sort of giving name suggestions. And it's not like it's not necessarily amusing, but it just the tone of this one is lighter, which I don't know. I feel like some people are making a bigger deal out of it than need be. I've seen some reaction from this on Twitter, and I have to admit that I don't get too invested in a lot of the daily Twitter controversies. It's something that doesn't particularly interest me that much. Like, I even saw somebody say that because of this 4.5 minute thing, they have some negative expectations for the upcoming pastors, and I just think it's taking it a bit far. I do admit that out of the 3 children in needs pastors that I've seen, and I'm not even sure if I've seen Time Crash, to be entirely honest, at least not in its entirety. I do think this is probably the weakest one, or at least the one I like the least, but I also don't think it's going to be reflective of Russell T Davies' new era showrunner as a whole either. So I just think it's important to realize that, hey, this is just a small blip in what is otherwise potentially going to be a new shining era of the show.
Or at the very least, not the Chibnall era. Yeah, for me, yes, there was comedy in Time Crash, which I think it's the best of the 3. But that's partly because it was just the 10th Doctor and the 5th Doctor. It was really nice seeing the 5th Doctor again. And it was just a very self-contained thing. This is literally involving itself in the chronology of one of the most confusing already chronologies of any Doctor Who antagonist, of course, being the Daleks. It's being a comedy thing involving the Daleks, who are a genocidal race who want to basically destroy anything that's not Dalek. I think it's how do you pull off comedy with them. I think that's part of the problem. I think the newer series, especially Moffat, try to do this a lot. At least when Russell T Davies tackled the Daleks in his stories, they did seem like a menacing threat. Moffat did not treat them seriously, I don't think.
Yeah, just picture the classic Tom Baker story Genesis of the Daleks, only with a laugh track. And you can see why it just feels sort of awkward.
Yeah, and I kind of liked, I mean, you saw it coming, but they did literally name drop Genesis of the Daleks in this. I'll talk about the 14th Doctor, but there's not much to talk about. He seemed basically just like the 10th Doctor, which, of course, I'm so in the series proper, well, I guess the sponsors proper, you will seem hopefully sufficiently different, or at least different enough, because he's had, 3 regenerations since then. Nonetheless, there's not much to talk about him. He was amusing for the few lines he got.
Now, out of interest, is this supposed to be somewhat immediately after the end of Power of the Doctor?
Well, he did say that 30 minutes ago I was he said brilliant woman. I did see brilliant in Whittaker's Doctor, but nonetheless, he did say 30 minutes ago, maybe said an hour ago, I was a brilliant woman, so which might discount Liberation of the Daleks, which was a comic story set immediately after the Power of the Doctor, which involved the 14th Doctor. But I don't know, I haven't read it, so maybe it literally does take place in less than an hour of the Doctor's timeline. I mean, honestly, comic stories, I don't know, to be fair, some comic book stories, they can be 10 issues and take place over a really short amount of time. So that's very possible. I don't know how many issues this story was, but
yeah, I guess to be fair, being Doctor Who, it could be like 30 issues and take place in negative time. So, who's to say?
Well, I mean, that is also very true. I mean, I don't know what negative time looks like, but if it exists, it'd be in Doctor Who. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of how Davros appeared in this. I just think it loses the distinct visual that we've had since the 70s for Davros. And I would understand if it was taking place long before the Skaro war, but this was taking place. Literally, we see the Doctor about to cross into the planet, and we see. I did like the visuals. We saw how huge the planet was, and we see the explosions from the atmosphere of the wall. So I thought that was pretty cool, but I don't think it quite works with Davros not being in his weird sin, not being slightly mutated and kind of creepy. Because that's just part of Davros' character. It's kind of changing it out of the blue very quickly. And I don't know, it just doesn't work as well for me. And neither does trying to turn a Dalek thing into a comedy thing, when usually Russell T Davies doesn't do that. But I also don't think any of this is indicative for how the upcoming sponsors are going to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a simple children in need special. It's something that I just feel like the audience is different. I just feel like some people might be taking it too seriously. If you have any type of online presence, James mentioned Reddit earlier, and I've never been much of a Reddit guy, but I do use Twitter/X, and Doctor Who Twitter is always fun. And like I mentioned before, there was a bit of a controversy, might be, I was going to say too strong, but it's not too strong. There was a big discourse over Davros' portrayal, and not necessarily from this story itself, but from some comments that Russell T Davies made about this toy, which I'm not going to touch on primarily because I haven't read. There's a lot of controversy surrounding this, insofar as canon's concerned, insofar as the portrayal of Davros. Ironically, I haven't seen that much controversy around the comedic tone, though I have to imagine that's the two. It always amuses me, and amuse might be a bit strong, but I get where a lot of sides are coming from. I don't have a horse in this particular race. I'm not overwhelmed by taking Davros out of the wheelchair because I think, what I think doesn't matter that much. It really depends on what they do moving forward. But this such a heavy amount of vitriol going back and forth. It just amazes me because, like I said, it's just a 5-minute short. And I want to see sort of what happens down the line as opposed to getting all up in the tearsy about this. It's just not worth it in my eyes.
I mean, but that's Doctor Who tricked in a nutshell. Anything sometimes sets people off. I mean, that's just how it's worked for years now.
Yeah, and I have to imagine it's the same with any fandom.
That is almost certainly true. And before we get into the portion of the timeline, and yes, we will have a portion of the timeline segment for our up-to-date reviews of episodes. I did want to mention that the comedy tone of this did remind me a bit, no, not as much, because this thing I'm about to mention, and I'm sure some of you already know what it is, was actually written as a comedy thing. One, of course, there was the Course of the Fate to Death, but that's always been considered non-canon anyway, just by the very nature of it. And that has pros and cons. It has some really amusing parts, some parts I don't like as much, but this also reminded me a bit of, and I'm going to give this name a fair shot, the Sarah Jane Adventures minisode from Roxacore Falapatorius with Love, which was a 5-minute comic relief special done around Series 2 of the Sarah Jane Adventures. And it was just this sort. I think it was for something called Rod Nose Day. I think it's a charity thing. I don't know the specifics. I don't remember. But it's this 5-minute explicitly comedy Sarah Jane sort. And it's fun, but in the end, not all that important. But it did remind me a bit of this one as well. And that might be unfair to this, because again, this isn't written, I don't think it's written explicitly as a comedy one, although it just has a comedy feel to it that other ones did not have. But that might, again, just be because of how strange it feels. One, to get new Doctor Who, maybe, because it seems like it's been a while. Has it at least been a year since Power of the Doctor?
I'm not sure, but it did just occur to me that we did not say who wrote this, and off the top of my head, I'm not actually sure.
Pretty sure this was written by Russell T Davies. But you're right, that is important to keep with the times. Yeah, this was written by Russell T Davies.
Yeah, naturally, that's something that we would usually mention at the beginning, but perhaps just the excitement of, like James had the first new Who in a while, just made us lose our senses.
But yeah, so this was just a nice surprise. And so, timeline-wise, as listeners of the show knows, the TARDIS Wiki, which you should always use if you're a Doctor Who fan, I'll try to avoid spoilers though, has a personal timeline for each Doctor, including the extensive extended media, ranging from the comic books, comic strips, Big Finish, and BBC audio, the multiple book ranges, and everything in between. Doctor Who canon is a jumbled mess, and it has been since the 60s. So it's just personally fun for me to see where the stories we're discussing fit into the universe as a whole, as it's supposed to be cohesive, which is kind of what universe means. Because continuity in the narrative timeline's just always been interesting to me. And so it's kind of different talking about new things that come out, just because maybe we don't have the full story of where these codes fit or what fits immediately after. It does get kind of complicated, so we'll have to keep that in mind. And of course, it can even change in the future when we get more details. For now, this is set directly after the aforementioned comic Liberation of the Daleks, which came out in Doctor Who magazine issues 584 through 597. Geez, that's about 12 parts. Didn't realize there's that many parts. It was the first full-length story featuring the 14th Doctor. And apparently they even have a cutesy line at the end leading into this. So that's kind of funny. And right after this, and you'd think, oh wait, nothing can be after this. You don't understand Doctor Who canon. Right after this is apparently in Doctor Who the official annual 2024, which came out September 2023. So it's kind of like a sports video game. There is a short story, very short story, I would assume, with the 14th Doctor in it, and some companion named Alfredo, or maybe somebody who's a companion in that, and we never see again, but it's just counted as a companion. But whoever Alfredo is, I'm sure he enjoyed this time with the Doctor, and this is going to be an interesting section to do with new releases, but I'm game for trying. And hey, at least now you know that Doctor Who magazine is still going very strong. Sadly, we do have a subscription to it, so we've not been able to enjoy Liberation of the Daleks, but it is interesting that there's a Doctor Who was fully first introduced, canon or not, in a comic book story like that.
When all said and done, Destination Skaro, or whatever you want to call this, Children in Needs Puzzle, it's whatever. I mean, I didn't particularly enjoy it. It was tonally not really my type of thing. But I'm also not going to get upset about a 5-minute mini-sode. It's just not in my nature. I guess it always depends on the mini-sode, but it was whatever. Gave us a little taste, I guess, of the 14th Doctor. But the full entree is coming up in a week, so the appetite is probably not going to be sated anyway. And I'm not sure if I can extend that metaphor anymore, but it's whatever. I'm not wild about some of it. Like that Claro looked a little more interesting to me than the planche, but Davros was apparently okay with it. But like, it's just some of that comedy. Some of it was fine, but it doesn't really do it for me. Like I said earlier, I don't think it's going to be reflective of the whole new era. So I'm just looking forward to coming up next, and I'm also excited that we can discuss some modern Who for the first time since we actually started this podcast, so that should be fun.
Yes, and just so you know, our plans in regards to that, we will try and force ourselves to get a recording up discussing new episodes, assuming they never do a Touchwood Season 3 thing. We'll try to get them out before the next episode. So within the week, basically, of a new episode, we'll try to get our recording discussion up about that week. So you have the episode to look forward to. Hopefully, hopefully as long as you look forward to the upcoming specials. And then you have our discussions to look forward to. What more could you want?
But naturally, that has just been probably a longer discussion than what it needed to be on Destination Skaro, or the 2023 Children in Needs parcel. If you have any strong thoughts about this or want to join in on the discourse one way or the other, by all means comment below, or join Twitter and any one of the multiple threads going on about it. It's really a sight to behold. Yeah, this has been the Brothers Mahoney. As always, I'm Michael.
And I am James.
And we wish you a pleasant night.